Evening, citizens, staff, and to my fellow council members. I'd like to call to order the regular city council meeting virtually for Monday, March 1st, 2021. It is now 8:01 p.m. If we could, would everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam City Clerk, could you verify we have a quorum this evening?
Yes, Mayor, we do have a full quorum. All 7 council members are present this evening.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to ask for any agenda additions, deletions, or amendments. I would like to make a motion to add a quick discussion about the signing of the letter against anti-Semitism to the new business.
I second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Would reply with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. All right, at this time, we will look to see, I don't see any citizen participation at this time. Is that correct?
No, Mayor, we have received 5 comments for this evening for citizen participation.
Okay, I turn it over to you.
Okay. So the first one we have is from Natasha Scott, the general manager at the Bowie Town Center, and it's in reference to the economic development strategy discussion. On behalf of our local business owners at Bowie Town Center in Bowie, Maryland, we have seen the impact that the global health crisis has had on our local area. The significant changes brought on by the coronavirus pandemic has affected not only their ability to operate in their full capacity over the last year, but also shifted their outlook for the future. While the state of Maryland has been able to offer support programs for business owners in the way of loans and grants, much of the business community recognizes that there is a larger need for an economic development strategy that should support small businesses through the pandemic, far and beyond into the future. Without such important economic infrastructure, businesses of all sizes are unable to fully envision the growth and sustainability of their businesses long term. We recognize that policymakers in Congress and the Maryland General Assembly have responded to this crisis with immense economic support, and we would like to see more done locally to support the needs of business owners in Bowie. Our business community believes that the city of Bowie should create a post-COVID economic development strategy that attracts, retains, and helps ensure the longevity of local businesses. In my role as general manager who supports our small business owners at the Bowie Town Center, I know firsthand how hard Marylanders have been hit during this time. To compete with other municipalities, I adamantly encourage the city of Bowie to devise a comprehensive economic development strategy that continues to promote the area as the welcoming and business-friendly city that it is. It is so important that we are poised to compete with other emerging local markets that attract local, regional, and national businesses. We support Councilman Boffel's motion tonight and hope that this will be the start of a new chapter in Bowie's economic development story. Thank you. The next one is from Mike Gorman from Althea Lane. Citizens of Bowie, together every 4 years, we elect council members based on personal integrity and good judgment. Recently, Councilmember Boffo, according to public information via Maryland court case search, was cited for reckless endangerment of people and property in Anne Arundel County. We are owed an explanation. Next one is from Bruce Ferguson. I was a cop in Baltimore for 19 years. After learning that Baltimore was hiring officers and that their process moved fast, I applied in mid-March of 1999 and was hired months later. I wasn't following in anyone's footsteps. There were no other cops in my family. I read an email about Councilman Boafo this morning and subsequently read his statement that he released this afternoon. I have to say, as a white man, if I called the police to assist with, as Mr. Boafo says, set up safety measures to protect other drivers, the cops would never question me. I say that as a former officer. It's no wonder then that Black Americans are much less likely to trust the police, a disparity that appears to be growing in response to incident after incident of police overreach. This isn't surprising when the majority of Black people have personally experienced unfair treatment at the hands of police. No matter the race of the officer, I think Councilman Boafo is just the latest minor case. Councilman Boafo, I'm sorry that this petty cruelty and abuse of power by an officer happened to you. Although I didn't vote for you in the last election, you've proven to be a fierce advocate for our Heather Hills neighborhood. You have my support, and I have to thank you for working with my favorite baseball team to get a vaccine center in Bowie. To pivot, I hope Councilman Boafo's unfortunate situation pushes state delegates Valentino, Holmes, Watson, and Doug to support police reform in Annapolis, especially after the report released by PG last week. Next one is from Olivia Parker from Peachtree Lane. As a parent raising children in Bowie, we frequently have discussions with our children about safety during police interactions, situational awareness, perceived behaviors, and implicit bias. While these conversations are meant to keep them aware of the reality they will face in life as a person of color, we strive to encourage their self-confidence and the ability to have control over their own behaviors and social environment as they grow older. My children met Council members Boafo, Roxy, Harrison, and Esteve during the swearing in. Our children were gratified to see leaders in their community not far off in age. Like other parents to children of color, I know the emotional tax and ongoing concern from having conversations with our children that are intended to prepare them for a world that will judge them prematurely and diminish the confidence they need to succeed. I never write into these meetings or on Nextdoor, but I was frustrated when I read the email being sent around. People in our community are trying to tear down a leader without all the facts. Sounds like the councilman did everything to protect others. I've spoken to many other parents today about this. Please let Councilman Boafo know that our thoughts about his work and integrity won't be swayed by an unfortunate situation. The last one, we are writing as 21 members of the NAACP Prince George's County and statewide branches that live in Bowie, Clinton, and Upper Marlboro in response to an email that was forwarded to us about Mayor Pro Tem Boafo. For ages, Black and brown parents have given their children the talk, instructing them never to run down the street. Always keep your hands where they can be seen. Do not even think of talking back to a stranger, all out of fear of how an officer will react to them. I was told by a former Bowie elected official that in fact, Adrian wasn't pulled over. He didn't hit anyone. He actually called the police after hitting something in the road. While others may not say that, what we are all thinking is the possibility that the crazy email shared around this morning is somehow linked to politics. A smear campaign intended to make him look bad. Someone should look into that. Mayor Pro Tem, we are thinking of you. We can't imagine how it feels to be penalized for doing the right thing. In the face of this situation, Mayor Pro Tem, keep your head up. We have your back. And then it's signed, and they're requesting that their names be read, and that is Esther Jones, Jolene Baker, Philip Boyd, Jasmine Walker, Kevin Ingram, John Leftwich, Brandon Addison, Carl Gathers, Bruce Corbet, Quilonte Nunn, Victor Garza, Michael Sutton, Rodney Johnson, David Richard, Sean Odom, Brent Lewis, Courtney Nash, Daya Young, Christian McDougall, Jordan Davis, and China Hensley. And those are all the comments for this evening, Mayor.
Thank you very much, City Clerk. At this moment, I'll take it as a moment of personal privilege because we've had all these comments to allow Mayor Pro Tem Boafo to make a statement at this time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. And thank you to all the residents who have reached out today, my colleagues who have reached out today, elected officials and other staffers who have reached out today. It's been pretty humbling and pretty gracious, and I really appreciate that. Recently, I was driving home from a friend's house on westbound Route 50, heading towards the city of Bowie. I hit a pothole and realized that my tire blew out and I couldn't drive home safely anymore. I pulled onto the shoulder. I called my family. I called my insurance and called the police as well, with the goal and the intent that they would set up some safety measures, not just to protect myself, but also to protect others on the road as well. While I was waiting on the tow truck, the police arrived, and to my surprise, they asked me to get out of my parked car. Look, this issue is going to go before the courts. I'm going to respect that process. In the meantime, I'm going to continue my work here in the city of Bowie. And once again, thank you again to my colleagues and to those who have reached out throughout the day. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor, you're on mute.
Okay, at this time, we'll move on with the agenda, and we'll go to presentations. And we have a Women's History Month presentation by the Diversity Committee.
Good evening. My name is Tamika Washington, and this is
Good evening.
Good evening. So I just wanted to share a little bit about Women's History Month with our great city. So March is Women's History Month, which celebrates both the known and unknown contributions women have made to make this nation great. There are many from our own state who have pushed us to excellence, and we take this time to honor them. Women like Billie Holiday, Sarah Barton, and Harriet Tubman all hail from Maryland and have made significant contributions to society through entertainment, nursing, and social justice. And in Bowie, we celebrate the contributions of notable locals like entertainer Kathleen Gifford, Addie Phillip, a CNN anchor and political correspondent, and Dr. Amina Brew, the state's first female president. And this year, we've seen the shattering of a significant glass ceiling with the election of the first female vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris. However, with all that women have accomplished, we must acknowledge there is much more that still needs to be done. As my favorite poet, Nikki Giovanni, once said, "If now isn't a good time for the truth, I don't see when we'll get to it." And so the truth is that persistent inequities in both promotions and pay continue to stifle women's professional growth. And the COVID-19 pandemic has had a devastating impact on working women. Over the course of the first 10 months of the pandemic, women, particularly women of color, have lost more jobs than men as industries dominated by women have been hit the hardest. In December alone, 140,000 jobs were lost, with the U.S. Labor Department saying that all of those jobs belong to Black, Hispanic, and Asian women. The true cost of this pandemic on women is still unknown and will likely take years to overcome. So we must still continue to fight for our seat at the table and our voices to be heard. And we do not fight alone. Allies continue to fight alongside us and advocate for us in rooms where we are still not altogether welcome. And we thank them for helping us as we continue to push this country forward together. This year, our Women's History Month celebrations will be virtual, and there are a few local events we hope you will support. Bowie State is hosting a 2-day Women's Forum on March 4th and 5th. The American Indian Museum in DC is hosting a lecture on March 18th focused on young Native American women who are working to make changes in their community. And the Interfaith Coalition of Bowie is hosting a panel discussion with female faith leaders on March 25th. Please join us as we celebrate the accomplishments of women and continue our fight for complete and lasting equality. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Washington. All right, as we continue with our agenda, we now move to city boards and committees. We have committee appointments. Ms. Bisola Olbade Kihande was interviewed on February 16th for appointment to the Education Committee, and Ms. Elena Whistler was interviewed on February 16th for appointment to the Green Team Executive Committee. I'll entertain motions at this time.
I'd make a motion to approve their selection.
I second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, respond with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, congratulations to the appointment. I would like to now do the swearing in if they are.
I believe Mayor, Ms. Whistler is the only one that's on here. Ms. Whistler, are you present?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Hi, Ms. Whistler.
Hello, Mayor.
Good. So at this time, I have you we will do the oath of office. So if you would, please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Elena Whistler,
Do swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
do swear that I
Or
will.
affirm.
I'm horrible at this.
All right, that's fine. Do
Affirm
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and that I will be faithful
and that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of Maryland
to the state of Maryland
and support the Constitution
and support the Constitution
and laws thereof,
and laws thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of regular member of the, and name your committee.
Can you say that one more time?
Sure. Execute the office
Execute the office
of regular member
of regular member
of the, and name the committee,
of the Bowie Green Team Executive Committee
according to the Constitution
according to the Constitution
and the laws of this state.
and the laws of this state.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And on behalf of all the council and all the citizens, we thank you for your support of the city and your volunteerism. We do appreciate you and look forward to all the wonderful things you will add to the Green Team.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. Look forward to working with everybody.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, we will now move on to the council announcements. I have one that I'd like to take the liberty of first. Last week we passed the proclamation naming March 1st as the COVID-19 Memorial Day. In honor of that, I'd like to read the proclamation that the City Council passed. So if you would join me for a moment. Whereas the first Monday in March has been designated as COVID-19 Victims and Survivors Memorial Day. And whereas COVID-19 is an illness caused by a virus that can transmit from person to person and has spread across the world, creating a global pandemic that is having catastrophic effects on human life, our community, and our economy. And whereas local and state governments, health departments, and public servants have taken bold actions to protect residents, support struggling local economies, and find innovative ways to provide services. And whereas, in response to rapid spread of COVID-19 and stay-at-home orders, essential workers have stepped up to provide critical services to help protect our communities and save lives, sacrificing their own health and safety. And whereas COVID-19 has had a disproportionate impact on low-income communities and communities of color, exacerbating inequalities already prevalent in our systems that we must address as a nation. And whereas public health guidance and policies targeted at prevention, such as social distancing, wearing masks in public, and staying home, help mitigate the spread of COVID-19, prevent illness, and lessen the burden on individuals and society. And whereas the symptoms and severity of COVID-19 can be dramatically by individual and the long-term health implications for survivors is largely unknown, as many survivors suffer with lingering side effects of the disease long after they no longer test positive. And whereas more than 2,357,475 people worldwide and 471,821 people in the United States have lost their lives due to COVID-19, and in Maryland, more than 7,288 lives have been lost to this deadly virus. And whereas each life lost to COVID-19 mattered and leaves a hole in the hearts of loved ones, family members, and surrounding community. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of Bowie, Maryland, hereby supports the designation of the first Monday in March as COVID-19 Memorial Day, in remembrance of those who have lost their lives and in honor of those who are forever marked by COVID and continue to suffer from the impact of this virus. Introduced and passed by the City Council of Bowie, Maryland, at a regular meeting on February 6, 2021. And I just want to thank everyone for their hearts and their compassion to all of those who have lost someone or who have suffered through this tragic pandemic. Having done that, I will now open to any of the council members. If you have any comments at this time, remarks. Hearing no other council announcements, I will now move to the city manager's report.
Mr. Mayor, good evening, City Council. Good to see you all out tonight. I'd like to say that we have staff, aside from doing our normal service delivery, we have been focusing on the last week helping seniors in wherever they are in the city register for vaccinations, and for those who are challenged with computer skills or the access to computer skills to help them. We've also, launched our Neighbors Helping Neighbors campaign that's also designed to help with that also. And finally, we're focusing on getting our essential employees, such as our solid waste employees, vaccinated, and we're focusing on that this week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, City Manager. And thank you to the staff and everyone for the hard work you're doing to try and keep our city safe, but more importantly, in helping our elders as well. On that note, we will move now on to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, respond with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same favor. Motion carries. We will now move. I see no old business on the calendar. Is that correct? Respond with an aye.
Aye.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. moving on to new business. I would first like to ask the council to support me in signing a letter by the mayors across the United States, as well as the, I want to say it's the AJC, and it's basically a letter signing against anti-Semitism. I will read one blurb from it before we go, and that is, we, the undersigned, condemn anti-Semitism in all its forms, including hatred and prejudice directed toward Jews, stereotypes or conspiracy theories about Jews, Holocaust denial or distortion, and denying the Jewish people's right to self-determination and our Jewish state's right to exist, and support national, state, and local government efforts directed at eradicating anti-Semitism and preventing extremist indoctrination and recruitment, and support expanded education programs, including Holocaust programs, to counter intolerance and discrimination. You have a copy of the entire letter, but that is the gist of it. And I would ask for the council to entertain a motion for me as mayor to sign on.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that you sign on to this agreement on behalf of the council.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor.
Aye.
Hearing none, motion carries. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now move on to the public health officer and discussing his position. As you know, last May we passed the public health officer, and the thing I'm asking for today is that we give the city manager and staff the green light to go ahead and look for someone to assist us, particularly with our elderly and with our emergency management from the health side of working to get as many people in our city vaccinated and that type of thing. Now, in there are requirements for the position, so that's already described when we passed it. The only other issue would be cost, and I'm recommending that we move forward with it, but we do it on a volunteer basis. And we just give the city staff and our HR permission to go out and do it. I spoke briefly with the city manager, and the position we will probably have whoever is selected have a background check done on them, just as a precautionary measure. I'd like to move forward, and I'd ask the council's support in asking the city manager to go ahead and try and fill this slot for us.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question.
Yes.
So could you just share the benefits of having this person on board to help the city and what they would actually be doing for us?
Yeah, I think the real benefit comes, as you have, and I know, and many of us have, we've talked to our public health here in the county, and they're very understaffed. Let's just be very candid in this pandemic, and it's hard. So what they're looking for, even they are looking for someone to assist them in the area, for example, in the city, to work as a liaison, to help them identify needs as we go along, to be able to report back to us. I see this individual as someone who can help us like our neighbors helping neighbors, as we are putting in place to be able to help our elderly, our seniors get vaccinated, and all to be able to make sure that they are also assisting as they talk to the health officials to assist us in that process to get that done. I would hope that they would be able to also give us insight in talking with the local hospital, Doctors Community Hospital, and the University of Maryland health system on what they can do, and actually helping to move forward the process of us getting possibly a site here in the city. to do vaccinations as well. So it's really, having talked to Dr. Carter and others, it's just they need as much assistance as they can. And I think as we look at our seniors, and as you just mentioned, and I know you, I don't mean to talk out of turn here. I know you volunteered for the Neighbors Helping Neighbors as well, and others, as we do want to take care of our seniors. And as the city has put that together to go through staff, really want to just have someone else assist the city staff and be able to talk to the council, and just another set of true medical expert to help us as we move through the pandemic. I hope I answered your question, please.
Yes, thank you very much.
Right. Madam City Clerk, do we need to make a motion or anything at this time, or can we just
Mr. Mayor?
ask staff? Yes, go right ahead.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Gardner.
Hi, Councilman Gardner, I apologize. Go ahead.
No problem, Mr. Mayor, no problem at all. I just wanted to say, I did initially have some concerns about this position when we first initially discussed this position. But as this pandemic, no one expected it to go on as long as it has, and to see as many deaths as we've seen, definitely in our region and in our city and in our homes. I'm very supportive of this project, of this individual position, simply because I'm here. I want to be able to throw everything at this that we can for ourselves, our families, and our residents. So I definitely support it.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor, quick question for staff.
Go right ahead.
Mr. City Manager, quick question for you. Do you think you've got enough information to put together a position description?
I think so, Councilman, with the specifics that are in the document that you all used to approve this. I think it was a resolution there, and what the mayor's already stipulated. I think we're in a position to charge the HR department with coming up with a decent job spec, and within a week or so get a recruitment effort going.
All right. Do you think you have enough information or could start the process for maybe putting together a process for publicizing, reviewing, and selecting a candidate?
I believe so. That was one question I did want to ask the mayor is, do you want to, who would be selecting this person? Would it be the city manager, or would you all have a selection process on your own? How do you want to do that?
I think it would be best as a collaborative effort. I think what you should do is go out and maybe you bring back to the council maybe your top 3 candidates. If you get those, or what your recommendation would be, and we go from that. I think it's fair for council to have a final say on it, but I think city manager, you can make a recommendation to us, maybe of your top 3, and go from there.
Well, Mr. Wolf.
What do you think? I mean, I'm open to suggestions.
That sounds great to me. Mr. Wolfley, I think with the information we have, we can certainly come up with a decent recruitment document and get started.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Any other questions from council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Michael Lista, very briefly. So I know that thank you. I know that in light of the pandemic, obviously this resolution has taken on a very pandemic heavy kind of orientation. And obviously with, unfortunately, a disproportionate number of infections and deaths related to COVID-19 in nursing homes and in senior living facilities, of which we have several in the city, that obviously gives this a certain sense of importance. But I also want to highlight that, one of the key functions of this role will be to give residents who live in elder care facilities and assisted living facilities and senior housing in the city another tool to ensure accountability and to deal with any lingering issues. We do unfortunately see a lot, not necessarily in Bowie, but it is an issue nationwide. Residents will often face challenges in senior homes and sometimes will unfortunately, depending on their state, may be more vulnerable to abuse of different kinds. And this is something that it's very important for us to be able to guard against and help provide additional resources for. So I just want to highlight that one of the key roles that public health officers tend to play in this kind of context is that they act as coordinators to assist anyone who has concerns about how they're being treated in that context to get some help. And so I just wanted to highlight that, and thank you for bringing this up.
Thank you, Council Member, for highlighting that. Any other comments or questions? I don't know if we need to take a vote or simply just.
Mr. Mayor, I don't need a vote. I don't need a vote, sir. We've already discussed this. It's already in the authorization by a previous vote. I'll just take this direction and move forward.
Thank you, City Manager. Okay, moving to our next item, and that's the Economic Development Strategy. Will city staff be initially reporting on that?
Well, we'll start with John Henry, and then we'll eventually hand it over to Mayor Pro Tem. John Henry, go ahead.
Henry, go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the record, John Henry King, Economic Development Director.
Good evening,
Mayor
John
Pro
Henry.
Tem Boffo, how are you all this evening?
Good.
Got the microphone on. We'll put my smiling face here on the screen as well. Several weeks ago, Mayor Pro Tem Boffo engaged me in conversation about economic development strategies, both in the general sense and in the specific for Bowie. I went ahead and collected some research from my files and updated information as to the cost to have one professionally prepared. To my knowledge, the last time the city had a professionally prepared economic development strategy was in 1999. That's before my arrival, but it existed when I got here. And that, I believe, was prepared by the Jacob France Center at the University of Baltimore, along with several other consultants that were part of that project team. In about 2006, the city's Economic Development Committee prepared a vision and strategy, which was shared with council at that time. And in 2016, the city's Economic Development Committee drafted an update of that strategy, but for several reasons, we were not able to bring it forward for council action at that time. So that's kind of where we are today. I provided some information to you in terms of costs and a copy of the draft that the Economic Development Committee prepared in 2016 and 2 example documents for you to aid in your discussion. And with that, I will let Mayor Pro Tem Boffo carry it forward.
Thank you so much, Mr. King. As Mr. King just said, it's been 2 decades since the city of Bowie has had a comprehensive economic development strategy. One of the main things of this new council as we came in was to focus on that, but obviously other issues such as the pandemic have affected that. My plan here is for the city to put out an RFP and collect economic development strategy companies to come in over the next 30 days. For us to review within that 30-day window, and for us to spend really the rest of the year with an outside company that will not just set us up for success as a city, but that will also set up Mr. King and his department for success in the future. We know a couple of things that are happening right now in the country and throughout the state. One, it seems like there is light at the end of the tunnel with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine being approved, and it looks like 2022 really becomes a year of us really getting back to normal. And so I'm asking my colleagues today to support the idea of putting out an RFP. Folks are going to ask, why not do this in the budget cycle? Because if there's no strategy, if there's no foundation, if there's no base to what we're doing, essentially what we're doing is giving Mr. King the runaround. We're giving him items that he needs to discuss and things that he wants to do, but without any clear direction. So this is the time. This is the time to set forth a direction. Again, 2 decades of no strategy that's clear and comprehensive. It is time to bring somebody in who can not just set us up as a city and our residents up for success, but that could also set up Mr. King and his department for success. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, this is Councilmember Harrison. My question is, how beneficial were the previous strategy reports that were done for the city that Mr. King mentioned in his report?
Well, it seems like, as Mr. King just said, the last one was done in '99, and neither him or I or any of us were around for that. So I don't know how successful that was. I can pivot to Mr. King on that. I will say that he did in his report detail some other ones done by municipalities here in Prince George's County and others in the Southern Maryland area, one by the city of Greenbelt and one by Charles County. But I'll pivot to Mr. King on how successful the '99 study was.
My understanding is when I arrived, the 1999 strategy was an existing document, but was not an operating document being used. Anecdotally, I was told that there was some disagreement between the city council and the presenters of the final report on that strategy. And it was ultimately resolved by an acceptance and a conclusion of payment on the contract, the amounts owed, and the city council chose, in part, to advance ideas through the budget process. But as such, that 1999 strategy was not used as a guiding document, as a well-done, well-received strategy might be.
So, John Henry, what would be the difference between what your office does and what this company would do for us? I guess I don't understand what the purpose of it is.
It's a fair question. The outside company, if we select the right consultants, are expert in studying the community from all aspects and in preparing a strategy that consolidates the ideas and recommendations gathered from all of the parties. They are expert at it, and they do it all day, every day. It is something I am able to do, but not able to do as effectively or as efficiently as an outside consultant could. Your Economic Development Committee is an option. And that's one of the reasons that their draft is presented to you. You can see where their thinking was as a body. And that document was probably one meeting away from being finished so it could be brought to the then sitting city council. They could go back and do it.
Mr. King, if I also can chime in at this point. Councilwoman Harrison, I think you bring up a fantastic point. As you know from our budget, Mr. King's, the scope of his office is also pretty small. The idea of bringing somebody in that's an outside source not only will work with our Economic Development Committee, the City Council, city staff, and residents as well, but as Mr. King said, it will have a holistic approach and depth of scope of work as well.
So is this going to happen in this cycle, or are you looking to do this in the next budget cycle?
My hope is to, if this motion passes, my hope is to have city staff again put out an RFP within the next 30 days, allow a 30-day window for folks to put in their bids, allow us to go through that process, accepting those, and then spending the next 6 to 8 months drafting up with that organization strategy for implementation and actual overall city strategy. So that next year in our fiscal budget in the spring, we can be focused on actually what we can implement and putting Mr. King and his department in the best place.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you. One of the things that, we're using the term Mr. King and his department. Now, just want to be clear. Mr. King is one person and who occasionally, during the course of a year, gets an intern. So just to make sure we understand it. Now, I'm not sure the timing is, whether we can draft an RFP in 30 days, that's feasible. But, we should probably allow more than 30 days for somebody to come back and get proposals set forth for us to look at, and that should be a 60-day process to be effective if we're going to do it in this fiscal year. Also, if this is passed, we have to identify a funding source for this and how much money the council wants to put forward into this, be it this year or the next year. Also, I'd like to make sure everybody understands that we'll be presenting the budget for 22 in about 30 days, just so everybody understands the timing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager.
Thank you. If I could, sorry, Mr. Mayor, if I could respond to that really quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. City Manager, again, you're the expert on how long it'll take for folks to come in, and so if that needs to be striked to 60 days, I have no problem doing that. Let me explain, not just to you, but also to my colleagues, about why doing it in the next budget cycle isn't effective. As soon as our budget passes in June, or late May, June, we will then be going through the 30-day, 60-day process. In that case, I do believe, knowing the budget as all of us do, the city manager is effective at saving dollars for the residents, which means that I do believe that we can identify quickly a funding source to get this done, so that as we are heading into the next year, we have a strategy outlined. Again, we're talking about 2 decades here of no actual clear strategy, and so I want to be clear about that one thing. But I do agree with your comments, Mr. City Manager, and we can expand that 60-day window.
Okay, Mayor. Oh, go ahead, Councilwoman.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask Mayor Pro Tem, just on that point, do you have any thoughts about the budget source at this time?
I think that's a question. Yep, I think that's a question for our budget team, and I think that's a question for Al as well. We do not have to identify at this moment a funding source, and we can instruct the city manager and city staff to do that. Again, as I said,
I wasn't asking if for them to do it. I was asking you, as the person who came up with some of the strategy plan, if you had any, looking at the budget, if you had any opinion on where the money's going to come from.
Nope. Again, I think that's a question for city staff. But no, I do not.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, if I could, any other question from any other council members before I ask Mike? Here now.
Really quickly, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in to say I really appreciate this plan. I think there are a lot of things in here that are probably a little bit more aspirational, but I think the goals are good. And I think this is especially appropriate given, last year in our many listening sessions, we heard a great deal from residents who were interested in exactly this. A diverse and thriving retail environment, a strong business base. And I think this plan is a really great first step to kind of move us in that direction. And so the fact that this is based on something that residents have been telling us they want to see is a very good thing. And very happy that this was brought up.
Thank you, Councilman. At this time,
Quick
question. My question.
Mr. Mayor, quick question, if I may.
Okay.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. Question.
I apologize. I'm a little slow on the mute button there. So I'm just trying to figure out what a timeline for this might look like, and getting back to this issue of whether or not when this would fall in and when we need the money. So if it's going to take us 60 days or so to get a RFP together, that gets us into, let's see, it's March and April, and we're in the middle of the budget season. Isn't there try and meld it into that budget process? It seems to me that the timing would be such that we would have that available for us, because we have a 60 days. We don't have to issue the contract until the next fiscal year, which is fine. We can do all the prep work in advance, couldn't we?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, can I take that?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Councilman Wolfley, I agree with that sentiment. The idea and thought here, again, was to get a bit of a head start Part of what the problem is going to be as we look at the next budget cycle is that obviously we know Mr. King, and we have instructed Mr. King and his department to put together a focus that I think is specifically on business retention. Am I correct, Mr. King?
I have not received that instruction, unless we're thinking of other things. The only business retention activity council has directed is through the grant funding they provided in immediate response to COVID, which was funded out of, excuse me, because it was close to the fiscal year.
Right.
It has been funded.
Yep. Sorry,
So
Mr. King.
Retention activity. It was during that discussion that I pointed out we don't have a robust business retention activity right now, and we do need one. And I promised you that I would submit it into the budget process, which I have done.
Yep.
But it is still up for discussion at the staff level before it is judged to be a recommendation that's worthy of coming to council.
Correct. Yes. So to that point, to that point, Councilman Wolfley, as we vote on the economic development strategies laid forth for the next fiscal year, in my opinion, it's probably easier to get it done a little bit in advance.
But I guess my point is that we won't be getting it done in advance, because if we're looking at 60 days for an RFP, we got to do a review, response review process as well, and then we can award the contract. We won't have any work product for this for at best 4 or 5 months. So there won't be anything to support the budget process. The budget process will be over with, so it won't give us any information to refine what we're doing. I certainly don't have an objection to pursuing this, but I don't think we want to try and fund it now, because there's no need for it now, because I don't think we're going to be in a position to actually execute an award of a contract.
Correct. I mean, if you're talking about the funding source specifically, we can always still instruct city staff to go ahead with the process, and as the city managers have said, we'll be getting our budgets in 30 days, and make sure that one of the key things in the economic development department is funding this exact thing. I'm not really as worried as from a funding standpoint. My head start is really to ensure that we have enough time so that we're not starting as budget ends in the summer, so that as we're adopting the new budget for the new fiscal year, we're also immediately beginning that strategy conversation. So from a funding standpoint, I'm open to that conversation.
Mr. City Manager, are you with your staff of your legions of people working in our economic development group, are you able, as part of the budget process, to put together a recommendation, an RFP, and lay out an effort to get us a strategy document in place?
We would be really working above and beyond. As you all know, the budget process, the work session process, is going to take up most of our time. Mr. King, who is a one-man operation, has a full plate already, and so we would have to, pool our staff to help him draft this RFP, which most likely wouldn't hit the streets until April, and therefore not have any contenders until the end of May, which would be the process. So we could pull it off, but it would be a lot of extra work and a lot simpler to pull it off as a result of once we finish the budget process.
Mr. City Manager, just to respond to that really quickly here, I do agree, as you know, how much the city staff is beloved across the state and envied by a lot of municipalities. But I do think this is a case, to quote you, to go above and beyond, especially on the economic development strategy.
Let me say this, Mr. Mayor, given the mission, we'll get it done. But I'm just giving my professional opinion on how we should. But if we got the mission, we'll make it happen. But the priority for the next 3 months is the budget. That's just no other way around it.
Do we have any
Right.
idea
And
of how much this has cost other municipalities to have this type of strategy done?
Yes,
We have-
Council. Yes, Councilwoman. It was distributed in the packet that we got it on Thursday.
Okay, could you share what those numbers are for the public?
It says anywhere from 15,000 to 200,000, and the quality strategy we're looking at, the cost in here is 100,000 to 125,000. Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What I
No
wanted
problem.
to hear. Appreciate that.
No problem whatsoever. I'd like to jump in here right here if everybody would just bear with me, and I'd like to bring in Mayor Pro Tem as well as John Henry and also the city manager and all, because I'd like to know how will we coordinate this with the county economic development commission and team, because they should be doing a broad plan as well that includes Bowie as part of the county. So how would we engage the resources from there as well to assist us in doing this, and how would we make sure that the two were compatible?
Yep, great question, Mr. Mayor. After speaking to some members of this city council in Greenbelt and to the mayor pro tem over there, my counterpart over there, one of the key things is going to be choosing a group that knows to do that, right? Choosing a group that is that understands that they're going to need to talk to the county and figure out what they're doing that will help the city of Bowie and attract businesses, but also what we can be doing in conjunction. So that's really going to come down to who we select in that process.
Mr. Mayor,
So your point is that, oh, go ahead.
Well,
City manager,
Well,
is that you?
one of the things I was planning to do was to get Mr. Iannucci a request that he come down sometime in the next month and give a presentation to the city council, if he's willing, on just what that commission's doing and how they're incorporating Bowie. And John Henry is connected with them, just to see just what we need to do, because we may already be included in the county's efforts. But that was something I was planning to do, just so he can have a moment to talk to us. And as you all know, Mr. Iannucci is my neighbor in Northridge, so he's a Bowie guy, and it would be a perfect chance for him to come and talk to us.
Yeah, because I think that would be beneficial as well, to have David come in. I think he's regarded by so many as being a real force when it comes to economic development. And that doesn't do anything to interfere with what we're talking about here. But I think, city manager, that's a good strategy overall. I think it would be great for David Iannucci to come before the council and just share with us what the county's plan is and how that affects and what they have planned for the city of Bowie as well. So if you could move forward with that, I think we would all agree that that would be beneficial for us if we had that.
Yes, sir, I intend to. We'll be contacting him this week to see when he can come down here and talk to us.
Thank you, city manager. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes,
as
Mr.
you were
Mayor.
just saying, so I think what you were saying is that whoever we select, whatever group, would have to be someone who works with the county EDC and others and actually incorporate whatever they're doing into what the plans would be for the city as well.
Yeah,
Is that a correct understanding?
Yeah, what I was saying is that, part of the strategy as we select folks should be trying to identify and see if they say in their presentations if they can work with the county and things of that sort. So I do think that's a thing on the back end to really focus on.
Okay. And yes, Councilwoman, we appreciate it. I'm sorry, everyone. I apologize for that. Okay, moving. Any other comments, questions for John Henry or Mayor Pro Tem or even the city manager regarding this at this time? I think Councilwoman Harrison, did you have another question?
No, I just wanted to say I appreciate the work that's gone into developing the plan, and we certainly need strategy moving forward. So thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, John Henry King.
Great.
Mr. Mayor, with that being said, I'd like to make a motion. My motion is
The
that.
chair will entertain a motion at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My motion is that city staff put out an RFP in 30 days that will be focused on implementing a strategy and implementation here in the city of Bowie, and then opening a window of 60 days to get those contracts, in which it will come to the city council for review.
Second.
If I can repeat your motion, just so we're all clear on what the motion is that we give the city staff 30 days to write up the RFP and get it out, and to also receive the bids, and then another 60 days to evaluate. Is that correct?
Yep, so a window of 60 days for folks to submit their bids.
But it's, excuse me for a moment, if I may. I thought part of the issue was timing and staff availability for putting the RFP together, and I thought we heard earlier from the city manager that it would be, shall we say, an undue burden. He didn't put it that way, but I heard it that way, on trying to get this thing done and shoved through. And I'm not sure I understand how something that we've gone without for a couple decades perhaps, and now we intend to take a couple of years to execute, should get rushed through at a time when staff is already burdened on this. I think we need to provide some additional time for them to make this happen.
Well, there's a couple things. A point of order here. There is a motion on the floor, and there was a second. But to use a point of personal privilege here, Mr. City Manager, do you believe that this will be an undue burden? That's not what I heard, but do you believe that this will be an undue burden on city staff?
Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. John Henry King is a one-man operation. He is working on all of his missions that he has. Plus, he's getting ready for the budget, which is going to dominate our lives for the next 3 months. It will be an extra work. It will be more above and beyond to get it out that fast. And that's what I said, and that's true. So what he says is accurate. However, if given the assignment, we'll do it. But we'd rather do it after, but our priority is the budget, and we'd rather do it after the budget's over. But whatever, but I take direction from the whole council. What assignment we get, we'll do it.
Thank you. And Mayor Pro Tem, I'm not sure that I heard a second on that at that time.
Well, pardon me, Mr.
Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, this
yes.
is Councilmember Gardner. Yeah, I did second that. However,
okay, I didn't hear it. Go ahead.
Yeah. However, after hearing from both Councilmember Wolfrey and the city manager just now, and speaking to the burden that it would place on staff and the logic behind it, it has been 2 decades since we've done this. Maybe it could wait till after budget. We may not want to put too much additional stress on staff when not necessary.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, would you accept the friendly amendment to have the work begin immediately after the work is completed in the budget area?
Respectfully, council member, not necessarily, and let me explain my rationale here. Part of what each of our department heads are doing during this budget season is putting together the priorities for their departments, which is necessary and critical to the residents of the city. Without having a framework for an economic development strategy, essentially what the city manager is saying is that Mr. King is working on a strategy for budget, yet again, we do not have a foundation. So no, I unfortunately will not. For point of order, I do hear that Councilmember Gardner has withdrew his second. which I totally understand and respect, Councilman. But I will look to my other colleagues for a second.
At this time, there's a motion.
I'm willing to second the motion as it stands.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Any further discussion?
Yes, quick comment. I'd like to understand when the timing of the completed work would be finished. Once we have a vendor on board. My understanding is the completed work would be well after the budget sessions or budget timing is completed.
Correct.
It says 36 to 44 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, one other point that should be laid out in the motion. How much money are we talking about, so we can frame the RFP should this pass?
Thank you very much, Mr. City Manager.
I would say, according to Mr. King's document, $100,000 on the low end is what should be set aside for this.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, it's been called for the vote.
Mr. Mayor, I call for a roll call vote.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor with an aye, and I will turn it over to the city clerk for a roll call vote.
Okay. Councilmember Staff,
Aye.
Councilmember Wolfley,
Sorry about that. I was on mute. That's a nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Bafo,
Aye.
Councilmember Ndebumadu,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrison,
Nay, only because of timing.
Councilmember Gardner,
And only because of timing, a nay.
Mayor Adams,
Due to the nature of what we need to get done, I'm going to give an aye.
Okay, so we have 4 ayes and 3 nays, so the ayes have it.
All right, it's motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, reply
Aye.
with an aye.
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 Nays, same favor. Motion carries. Thank you,
Good
everyone.
night.
Good night.